Kalimera, welcome to the Aegean Sea. We're here with Christian Travel Study Programs. I'm Dr. Randall Smith, and we are taking a look at the background of Paul's writings. We're spending 6 sessions together on board the Celebrity Reflection, a beautiful vessel, and spending some time looking specifically at the background of Paul and at some of the letters that he wrote. We're glad you joined us for this little study, and we want to bring you along for just a few minutes of our cruise journey, just to spend a little time investigating what Paul wrote. Now remember that all people have 2 judgments. Everybody, saved and lost, we all have 2 judgments. One of them is a judgment of sin. Yours, if you know Jesus, was done at the cross. But there's another judgment for you, and that's performance. That's the BEMA seat of Christ, 1 Corinthians 3, 2 Corinthians 5. But we all have 2 judgments. In the end of Revelation, the lost was their name found written in the book of life. In other words, was their sin paid for by Jesus or not? And then another book is brought out, the good and evil deeds of men, performance. All of us get that. The only difference is those of us who Jesus paid for our first punishment are already past that. I do not get judged for my sin, but my sin hinders my performance, and I will get judged on the basis of my performance. Sin and performance. In our case, it's called the BEMA seat of Christ, and we're going to see a BEMA when we are in Corinth, so you can grab onto what 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5 is talking about. Guys, let's take a minute. First, the oldest monument will be sticking up behind the shops. Then you'll have a row of shops, then you'll have an open plaza. If I walked over here, I would find the meat market of the town. If I walk to the center, I'll find a raised platform. The raised platform, the BEMA of the city. Paul will write in 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5 about the BEMA seat of Christ. This is a different kind of judgment than a legal judgment. The BEMA seat is normally a judgment that goes along with games or performance, so that you are awarded according to your performance. Every person has 2 judgments, one over sin and one over performance. We talked about that the other day. Standing next to the BEMA in Corinth, it reminds us of 2 events. One, when Gallio was sitting on top, judging between those who were trying to harm Paul in the city in Acts chapter 18, and the second event, I think that's every bit as important, perhaps even more important. This is the motif or the description of an event that will happen in my life and in yours. 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5 teaches that we will all stand before the judgment seat of Christ, the BEMA seat. BEMA is the word for raised place. BEMA is a platform upon which you would put a seat of judgment. Not only was Gallio the proconsul there in Acts 18, but also this is the image Paul would have had in 1 Corinthians 3 and 2 Corinthians 5 in the mind of the Corinthian. Now, it's used in 2 ways. Sometimes it's a judgment seat for public judgment that is going on as a result of some kind of court case. But more often it's used at the end of games in order to give out laurels, kind of like the platforms that you stand on Olympic Games, and there are 3 levels for gold, silver, and bronze. Here, this is a place where athletes were given by their performance different laurels that became incredibly important for their life. Paul writes to the Corinthians and says that absent from the body, I'll be present with the Lord. But when I'm present with the Lord, I'm going to stand there, and every one of us will be measured. Think about this. The seconds, the minutes, the hours, the weeks, the months of my life will be placed between the fiery eyes of Jesus Christ on the BEMA seat in heaven and me. There's my life. And the things that are consumed by fire were wood, hay, and stubble. And only those things that survive become the gold of the crowns I can cast at my Savior's feet. The BEMA seat is the judgment seat of Christ, a place where believers, only believers, will have their performance, not their sin judged. Their sin was judged at Calvary. Their performance will be judged at a BEMA seat. And this is the picture from which Paul would take that imagery for every Corinthian.